Thank you. Take a seat. Good morning and welcome to chapel. I just want to welcome a shadow student we have here today, Sienna. Where are you hiding in the crowd here? That's a lot to ask somebody to stand up, but anyway, they're somewhere out here. Sienna, if you see her around, please say hi. There you go. Thank you. So we're in the final stretch of the year, and it's really important that as we consider everything that we've got coming up, that we make sure to look after ourselves. This might not feel as poignant in grades 7 and 8, although they're definitely, I know the 8s have some big projects coming up, but it is something that requires really good habits to be in place before we tackle really challenging times. And as we get into the senior school, like students who have AP exams that have just finished, and then provincial championships that are coming up, and then a final exam week that are coming up, and then graduate and if they don't have really good habits and behaviors in place by the time they're in grade 10, 11, or 12, it's going to be really hard to establish those. So I want you to think about, as you hear the things that we speak to this morning, do you already do some of those things? And can you start to build some of those habits? And keep one other thing in mind while we talk about building good habits. It takes at least 3 weeks to as many as 6 weeks to build a routine into something that becomes a habit. 3 to 6 weeks. You want to try something new? You got to do it every day for about a month and a half before it just becomes something you just do. Okay, so let's get started. Self-care, the temple. The temple is built on a strong foundation. Without these 3 pillars, the whole thing falls apart. Nutrition, sleep, and exercise. And the interesting thing is that they're also all connected, right? They will bring each other down. If you don't sleep well, often you find yourself eating really badly because you're like grumpy, and what makes me feel good is usually the worst food to eat. A tub of ice cream, right? So you've got to make sure you're sleeping well. If you don't eat well, you're probably not feeling like you want to exercise, so then that falls apart. And then if you don't have these in place, boy, all the feels get really hard to deal with. And there's so many big feelings, right? My son is classically hangry. The other morning, he's like, no, Dad, I don't want to go to school. I'm like trying to get him out of bed. And I just like, I make some toast and I go in his bedroom. I'm like, just put this in your face. And he's like, oh gosh. And 5 minutes later, he's like, bing, 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 and he eats breakfast and everything else is fine, right? How many people here get hangry? Yeah, it's a thing. It's totally a thing. And then all of this needs to be in place before we can even think about planning. And planning for some of us is easy, but for some of us, it's actually really hard. Yeah, it makes me nervous too. Look how much is relying on the foundations, right? And before we even want to perform, so what does perform mean? It means complete the project, make the presentation, write the test, run the race, play the game. All of those things are performing. And if you don't have all of this in place, that cannot happen. Or it will, and it will probably go really badly. So look how much is relying on these 3 things that we so often cut out of our life, thinking that maybe these are the priority, right? Staying up late to study. No, because you think you need to study to perform, but you're taking one of these out of the way. What's going to happen when one of these gets out of the way?
It falls.
Yeah, you can anticipate what's going to happen here, right? Gravity wins. So we're going to talk about just those 3 pillars. I'm not going to talk about emotions and planning and performing. I'm just going to talk about the pillars today. So sleep. What is sleep hygiene? We all know what hygiene is, keeping clean, good habits, right? Sleep hygiene. What are some examples of good sleep hygiene habits? Anybody know? What should you do with your little glowing pads of doom? How long before bed should you turn all that off? Like an hour. Yeah. And just shifting it to yellow light doesn't help. turn it off, put it away, turn the lights down, go to bed at the same time every night. Treat your bed as the place that is only for sleep and not for other things. Then your body gets conditioned into understanding, now is the time to sleep. When I am here on the comfort square, you just will fall asleep. Feeling sleepy or tired in the morning means you're probably not using really good sleep hygiene habits. How many people sleep well pretty much most nights? That's really good. How many people consistently find themselves waking up tired and like, I didn't have a good night's sleep? Yeah. So you should reflect on that and think about your habits before bed, which you can talk a bit about more later. I don't have time in this presentation for that. So what are the impacts on cognition? Cognition is the fancy word for thinking. What happens to your thinking ability? Well, if you get less than 6 hours of sleep per night, the brain doesn't work. That stuff between your ears is heavily reliant on sleep. It's kind of like Ed, the gardener out here. He spends so much time weeding and trimming and making everything look really good. What happens if somebody doesn't pay attention to that, like on the back hill? It just goes wild and all the bad stuff grows in. Your brain's the same way. A busy day, all these thoughts and memories get built up. At night, you need to prune and pull back and clean house. That's what sleep is doing for you. Okay? Memory consolidation and learning occur during sleep. Often you're stuck on something, you walk away from it, you go to bed, you wake up the next day, you're like, yes, I nailed it. You're memorizing a poem, you're learning a new trick, you're like trying to run a line on the mountain, and then finally, like you can't do it, you go to bed, you get some rest, you come back, your brain has actually been going through that in the night and thinking about how to do it better. One study found that even one night of sleep deprivation prevents working memory. Working memory is that like quick 2-minute memory you need, where you just need to remember something for a second and then you go back. In a computer, it's the same thing as RAM. RAM builds up and gets fragmented until you restart your computer. It empties it out so you can start fresh, right? Your brain's the same way at night. And you should also know that if you lose an hour of what you consider your regular sleep, it takes at least one night of good sleep to make up for that hour. So if you regularly sleep 8 to 9 hours a night and you get a bad night of sleep and it's 6, it's going to take 3 nights in a row of good sleep to catch up. In the last few years, we've started doing some studies in the senior school, some surveys. And I found it fascinating that how many people self-reported. So this is senior students, grade 8 through 12, telling us how much sleep they think they get, right? And the senior students are pretty good. I think they're probably fairly honest. This was an anonymous survey. So most of them get between 6 to 8 hours of sleep. That's okay. But if you're still a growing young person, you definitely should be in the neighborhood of 8 or plus. That's what's recommended, okay? Most of us adults can get away with 6 or 7. Still not ideal. We should get 8. Then this year we did a parent survey. And I thought, I wonder what the parents think the kids are sleeping compared to what the kids say they are sleeping. Oh, you've tricked your parents. They think you're in bed asleep. And maybe you've got your phone out or you've still got the lights on, but you're not sleeping as much as your mom and dad think you are. So generally, sleep hygiene, I think, is probably okay in our senior school, but it could be better. Emotional regulation also dives, right? 60% greater emotional reactivity in the amygdala. The amygdala is your little fear center. How many people might overreact to a stimulus that otherwise should be pretty manageable? Chronic poor sleep is strongly linked to increased anxiety. So not clinical anxiety, but feeling more anxious all the time. Greater irritability and impulsivity, and a higher risk of depression. So isn't that interesting? Anxiety is kind of like, and depression is, so it exacerbates, it makes worse those two things, pushes you to the extremes. Adolescents who report poor sleep hygiene, 2.5 times more likely to report some really, really bad thoughts. Physical health and energy, 8 to 10 hours sleep, like I said. But 73% of high schoolers report sleeping fewer than 8 hours, right? Which is pretty close to the number we were just looking at before. So we know it's all bad. You don't sleep, you're probably going to get sick, right? You don't sleep, Your cortisol, which is the stress hormone, that goes up. There's all kinds of problems with it. And then finally, performance. Athletes who extended sleep to 9+ hours had improved reaction times. Drama, too, performance on stage. There's some really easy metrics with sports. There was a great study that simply looked at free throws, free throw accuracy. So they looked at basketball athletes, they looked at self-reported sleep, and then they did a study. And in a double-blind study, you don't tell the athletes what you're actually testing for, the subjects, but they had them change their sleep. And in every practice, the coach was kind of sneakily, was like, hey guys, we're going to try and improve free throws. So for 5 minutes at the end of practice, we're all just going to do free throws. The athletes didn't know that's what they were testing for, which makes the study stronger. And so sleep went down, and what do you think happened to free throw accuracy?
It also went down?
Yeah, it's not rocket surgery. Like, it's very clear correlations. So what is sleep hygiene? Try and reduce your stress. Turn off the iPhones, turn off the social media, read a book. Okay? Limit caffeine 11 hours before you want to sleep, which includes energy drinks and chocolate. Okay? Shouldn't be having any of that stuff after lunch, really. Create a healthy sleep environment, like I said, your comfort square. Establish a routine, it's so important. All right? So, all really easy things to say. And I don't think any of this is like lightnings of realization here today. This is probably all things you've heard before, but really, really impactful. Nutrition. So, how do we eat well? We know that a healthy diet is crucial for physical and mental well-being. Again, nothing new there, right? So, improved mood, like you eat better, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna react in a way that's better to your environment. You think better. Your brain is reliant on micronutrients. So, potassium and sodium is absolutely necessary for the proper functioning of your nervous system. If you don't have it, it doesn't work. You also need to make sure that you're eating carbs. You also need a little bit of sugar. Your brain requires rocket fuel. It doesn't feed on fat like the rest of our body can, which is a good thing, because your brain's mostly made of fat. So when your brain gets hungry, it doesn't want to eat itself. It wants the rocket fuel. So it needs carbs. It needs fuel. There's also increasingly a very strong gut-brain connection. We know about things like the microbiome, all the little microorganisms that live in our gut and do good things for us. They produce, by eating fiber, they produce the vitamin A and vitamin K. We need all those things to survive. And then finally, reduced inflammation. So inflammation is a reaction by the immune system. It can be triggered by unhealthy eating habits, and that can everything from like joint pain to immune system overreactivity, a number of problems. So if you're eating poorly, increased risk of depression and anxiety. Again, it pushes our emotions to the extremes. Poor mood regulation. So really big mood swings, irritability. And finally, again, you're not thinking straight. So the research is unequivocal, right? Correlations between healthy diet, improved mental health. High fiber diet. Fiber is the life hack. Like, it is so good for your body. Helps prevent cancer. Helps grow the bacteria that provide all the important vitamins. Helps you have regular poops, which is really important. Grumpy people sometimes just need to poop. Research from Harvard says that there are certain diets in the world. Why do some people live longer than others and always seem happy? Probably has something to do with the food they're eating, right? And finally, the NIH, which is the British National Health System, they found that dietary patterns that are high in processed food. What is a processed food? How do you recognize a processed food? Yes?
Something that is like changed into original state, like an apple.
Yep.
But then you turn that apple into apple pie.
Okay, that's a little bit of processing, yeah.
Because it came in an apple to apple pie.
Sure, but I'm talking about like, if you go into the store, could you point out really quickly the processed foods? How? What do you nodded your head, so I'm going to point at you. Yeah? Yeah? Juliet? Package. If it comes in a package, it's processed. If it has a nutrition label, it's processed. The more packaging, the more processed. So when you're looking for good food, where should we go? First, how much food? How much is enough? How many people have heard of Michael Phelps? Who's Michael Phelps? A swimmer. He's the swimmer. He has more Olympic medals than any athlete of all time. More golds than any athlete, let alone in a single event, okay? Normally an adult, we think, should be eating 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day. You are not adults. You are growing. You need more. And if you're active and you're still growing, you could need as much as 3,000 calories a day. That's really what you should be doing if you're really active. Now, a normal active lifestyle is only 3 times half an hour of exercise a week. Most of you are busier than that. You have PE, you run around at recess, you're fairly active. You need fuel for your body. Michael Phelps, when he was training, was eating 12,000 calories a day. Now, if you don't know what that looks like, there's a great video of him sitting down for one of his training meals, and it's like, it doesn't even matter where the calories come from anymore. Pizzas, lasagna, potatoes, and he's just like, ugh. And he just needs to get the fuel in his body. It's insane. When you turn into a high-performance athlete, you need fuel, you need to eat well in order to function and perform, right? If you're gonna get up here. So, what are you gonna eat? Eat food, eat. Mostly plants, that's better. I'm not gonna say no meat. Meat has its place, but mostly plants. Eat the rainbow. At lunch today, I'm gonna be looking at plates. I wanna see a color palette. I don't wanna see beige, cheese, chips, beige. No, like get color. Go to the salad bar. You need color. And finally, the less processed, the better. Now, this is the food pyramid. The Canadian food pyramid is not quite like this. It's mostly grains down the bottom. This is the Swiss high performance pyramid. I like this one a lot better. What is the foundation of your food pyramid? Hydration. You need water. Okay. Fruits and veggies. This should be the majority of the volume in your diet in a day. And as we go up, one of the things that I like about this pyramid is at the top, yeah, there's a bit of soda and a piece of cake, because we all like treats. Treats are okay, you can have some treats, but you can't have treats if you don't have the foundation below. So what should your plate look like? Really good visual, quickly. Easy training. So most of you would fall into this category, okay? Half of your plate should be the rainbow. Most of you probably pile your plate really high, and half of your plate is this, or even a whole plate is this. This is what we love, especially salty with, white carbs with butter. Mmm, yummy. No. The rainbow, that's what you need if this is gonna happen. So pile your plate high with the rainbow. Now, as you increase activity levels and you need more calories, the profile changes a little bit. So moderate training, so this is probably 4 times a week, and at least 2 of those are fairly intense. Right? Some sprinting might be involved and you need that fitness. Well, you're increasing the carbs. This is where the fuel comes from. And this is a bit hard to visualize, but the amount of veggies here is actually the same as the plate before. We're now looking at kind of a bigger plate. So half of your previous plate is all still here. You're not eating less veggies. That's not what this is saying. The proportion of your calories changes because you're getting the fuel from up here. And then finally, the high performance athlete, again, it's still the same amount of veggies. This is just a really big plate. So if half of that plate was this, fractions test, if half of the plate is now a quarter, relatively speaking, what's this? That's now half your plate, if it's the same size plate. And now you need a third plate to hold all of this, or a second plate to hold all of this, okay? So you need a lot more fuel. And notice fats. Fats are an important part of that. Good fats, right? Plant-based fats are the best ones. Where do you go in the supermarket to find all these good foods? Around the outside. Shop in the donut, which seems counterintuitive, I know. Stay on the outside. So you walk in the store, and what are you greeted with? The aisle ends and all the bits and the treats at the checkout and all the naughty stuff. No. Put the blindfold on, get to the outside of the store, and patrol the perimeter. This is where all the processed foods are, right? You're going down the aisle and it's like, you're going down this canyon of seduction for food. Try and stay out of there. Don't get drawn into the bright colors. Stay on the outside of the supermarket. Exercise, movement, and play. So integral in regulating emotional regulation, right? Again, boost cognitive function, recovery from mental health conditions. It is one of the best things to equalize mood. Even people with clinical anxiety increasingly now are told you need to exercise. Depression, it's the same thing. It's really hard to exercise if you're in those places, but exercise brings down anxiety and helps to reduce depression and equilibrate mood. So important. It also, it also enhances memory, attention, cognitive function. Remember that fancy word for thinking? So important for all of those pieces. So the benefits, better mood, reduce stress, increase self-esteem. I did a hard erg workout this morning, and I definitely am like, I'm awesome. Like I feel good today. And that's because I worked hard this morning. And I feel like I'm probably gonna negate that by justifying eating a donut at some point, but that's okay. You're allowed to treat here or there. Learning and academic benefits. Better attention. This is a huge one. You're getting to an age where sitting still and learning, exactly what you're doing now, gets harder and harder. There was a great study in Spain that followed about 3,000 students for a long period of time, out of high school and into university. The single best indicator of academic success were students who could sit and engage and focus for 70 minutes was the sweet spot. How long are the learning blocks in the senior school? 70 minutes, not an accident. If you can sit and focus for that long, you're probably going to be more successful at university. Now, for some of us, that's really hard. But you know how we can help that effort? Make sure these things are all in place. Because if they're not, you don't have a hope. So, focus and attention, improved memory, reduce stress and anxiety. So when you sit down for that performance piece, you're ready to go. And finally, increase academic outcomes. Some of the brightest students I've ever taught in my career were rowers. Rowers are ridiculous athletes. Like sometimes I question their sanity. The amount of training they do, how hard they train, 2 a day, it's bananas. But academically, most of the time they are high flyers. How do they manage that? Well, they have to, if they're going to perform at rowing, these all have to be in place. And if those are all in place, what happens? They're doing better in school. So, something else that we need to understand is that when these are out of place, right? When these things aren't working out very well, we need to also apply some other tools that we can use to make sure everything's working well. So, these other tools that we apply, mindfulness and grounding. Has anybody done any mindfulness and grounding exercises? I think you should all raise your hands. At some point, you guys have all done square breathing. How many people have tried square breathing? There you go. That's a mindfulness and grounding exercise, right? Any exercise where your teacher does a thing, maybe eye-rolling inducing, and you're like, ugh, not this again. But we are trying to teach you the habits to go, take a breath. What do you guys do at halftime during a big game? You come in, and what's one of the things you guys do now regularly? 2 deep breaths. You've just come in from a first half of intense rugby. People are hitting you, you're tackling other people, maybe you're losing. Okay, what do? We all come in together. How does that make you guys feel in that moment? Does it? You find it? Yeah, right? It helps ground you. This is a really, really tried and true tactic in a lot of situations. You find yourself sitting at a test. You're about to go up for a presentation. Take a moment. And blow what you think other people are thinking about you in that moment. Oh, I'm going to look silly off to the side, breathing with my eyes closed. Who cares? Do it. It will bring you down. It will calm your nerves, bring your heart rate down, and prepare you better. So why do these things work? Reduces stress and emotional reactivity. Enhances working memory and attention, improves performance. I think you're starting to see a pattern here, right? Memory, performance, emotional regulation. All of these things are incredibly important. Now, there are lots of places we can go to learn about these practices. And over the years, you guys are going to learn more about them. So when they come up, pay close attention. These are really important skills to try and add to your toolbox. So these are all interconnected, right? We've been making a point of showing when exercise fails, it all falls apart. Okay? I've been waiting all morning to do that. I was thinking about it the moment I woke up. It all falls apart. They are interconnected, right? This can't all happen on just two. And I know the moment I say that, a couple of you were like, challenge accepted. I could balance the whole thing on just two. It won't work. So, how do you prepare for performance? You're going to ask yourself some questions. And maybe before the performance, you're asking yourself some questions. Am I going to eat? How am I going to look after my nutrition? What does my sleep habit look like? Have I connected with others and shared my challenges? That's a great way to let the pressure valve off. Okay? And finally, are you dwelling on things, right? Is a little molehill turning into a mountain in your head? And what can you do about that? So we can spend a lot of time trying to deal with what's up here, but we forget what's down here. So what can you do in the moment when you're feeling really anxious? You can halt. You're having a reaction that doesn't make sense in the moment. How do you deal with that moment? You go, wait a minute. This is what my son needs to do more often. Do I just need a Mars bar? Like, do I just need some food right now? This reaction seems a little over the top. So maybe I'm hungry, right? Maybe I'm angry about something else over here, but it's making this really hard. So am I angry about something? Am I lonely? Am I lacking social connection? Have I isolated myself too much as I prepare for this thing? And maybe I'm tired. Am I getting enough sleep? Right? And we know if the foundation is strong, a lot of these things will be looked after. But in that moment of kind of quote unquote overreaction, that doesn't seem to like, how many of you have been in a fight and it came from like my arguing over a Lego man and my kids are ready to kill each other and it's a Lego figurine. That seems a little disproportionate. How many people have been there? Maybe not with Lego. Yeah, right? And it's like, whoa, this seems a little over the top. Well, one of these things is probably at play in that moment. So why does this work? It's because you have to remember the basic needs are going unmet, right? The foundation. And so you've got to question yourself. So stop and think about thinking, think about your habits, think about what's going on here, right? And what do you have to do? Tired is a great one. What's the solution to not being ready for a test? What do? Yeah, let's stay up all night and study. No, that's the worst thing you should do. If you're, before a performance, you're tired, what do? Go to bed. Oh, I'm not studying well anymore. Go to bed. Get some sleep. Maybe get up in the morning and go for a walk. Go for a short jog. Do something active. Clear your head. Not study. There's a point of what we call diminishing returns. You can overstudy and now it just starts going this way. If you're lonely, connect with your peers. Reach out. Talk to your parents. Talk to a cousin, an uncle, an aunt. Somebody that you know you can connect with. You're angry? Why are you angry? Address that problem. Right? A teacher of mine used to say, what you can bring into the test. And he was like, you're allowed to bring food, one piece of food, a banana. Why? The banana, potassium, imperative for our nervous system functioning. Sugar, rocket fuel for the brain. A little bit of fiber, happy guts, helps you feel full. Okay? Eat well before a test. Not junk, not Cheetos, not a Monster. No, that is rubbish. So bad. Caffeine, sweeteners, sugar, taurine, gosh knows what else is in there. Chemical swamp. No. The acidity, bad for your mouth. Don't get me started. No. Water. Electrolytes. Okay? So we can be reactive or we can be proactive. We can wait until it goes wrong, or we can prepare in advance, build good habits, so that when things do go south, our body and our mind are better prepared. Okay? Thank you very much. I will send this slide deck to your teachers. Engage in conversations about this, and it takes a long time to build these habits. So please, please, please be mindful of how you're looking after yourself in these final weeks of school as you head into summer. Thanks, everybody.